Alright, today, live review Lot 40. Canadian rye whiskey, 100% rye whiskey, 100% unmalted rye whiskey. And this is from the Corby distillery. I think it still comes from the Corby Spirits and Wine Limited, which is 51% of the voting shares are owned by Pinot Ricard, but only 46% of the company. So you too can own part of Corby Wine and Spirits if you really want to. You're not shut out. But you can't make any decisions. Pinot Ricard has all the voting shares. 51%, enough to make a majority, I suppose. This is 43% alcohol, 86 proof. Comes from a copper pot still, not a column still. We have to say that when it comes to Canadian whiskey, because who knows where that shit was distilled. This is non-chill filtered and of natural color. And this is aged for approximately 7 years. It is a non-age statement bottle, but we guess it's about 7 years old. In number 2 char virgin oak, so most of you from the United States will be quite familiar with the number 4 alligator char oak that they typically use for bourbon whiskey. This is a number 2 char, so very much less char. That is what we got. The straight, regular old Lot 40, very available in Canada. Of course, this was originally discontinued in the 2000s. It was a limited product, and then it was relaunched in 2012. Been overseen by our friend, Master Blender Dr. Don Livermore. How many doctors do you know that work in the spirits industry? Not medical doctors. Spirits doctors. Not witch doctors either. I suppose he's kind of a witch doctor, but he has a doctorate in brewing and distilling, I think. I think that's the doctorate he holds. Wild concept. Do you want to be a spirits doctor? What about a beer doctor? It does exist, evidently. Alright. So we will rate this out of 100. 25 for aroma, 25 for palate, 25 for finish, 10 for texture, and 15 for my personal subjective opinion. Here we go. Again, approximately 7 years, 43% alcohol. Number 2 char virgin oak barrel. And again, this is 100% unmalted rye whiskey. So that means that they have to use some other kind of agent to convert the starches to sugars. But alas, 100% unmalted rye. And that makes you remember, like, you know, most rye whiskeys you think of are unmalted rye whiskeys. You know, malted rye whiskey, that's an interesting spirit. You don't see that too much, malted rye whiskey. You imagine a single rye, what would you call that? Single malt rye whiskey? Yeah, I think that's what you would call a single malt rye whiskey. Malt kind of implies barley, but you could have 100% malted rye. You could have a single malt rye whiskey. Be very confusing a little bit, but yes, sir. Here we are. All right, let's get going on here. A little bit like dusty wood, but you got some like caramel in there. Caramel butterscotch, a little bit cherry. This like dusty wood note is in the back though. A little bit on that licorice. A little bit on that dill, forest pine. So it's pretty good, like a pretty good set of aromas, some good intensity for, again, 43% alcohol. And this is one of the interesting things about Lot 40 is I've kind of always said roughly from the beginning that, like, this is a pretty good value. It's a pretty good whiskey, but every time we went for like those advanced special release bottles or you know, variants like the dark oak or the, like, again, we also rated the The Explorations #1 peated quarter. Every time I've tried like a variant of this, somehow it doesn't really quite work, you know? Like, almost like, this is a great base spirit, but it just doesn't maybe take well to riffs on it, even though you would think a good base spirit would riff really well. And I think I've like frequently said I feel like the base lot 40 might be the best of the bunch, even the variants. Now I haven't had a cask strength. Have just a regular cask strength. So maybe a regular lot 40 cask strength that was just straight cask strength lot 40, nothing weird going on with it. Maybe that would be a goated bottle. I'm not sure. You gotta have a seat. We're talking about drinks. Yeah. No, it's not loving time. It's time to talk about drinks. Yeah. So you take a seat in the audience or you gotta get down. No. We don't want fur in the glass. That's the problem. It's not you really, it's the imbibing of fur. That's the issue. Hey. Okay, we're gonna get down now. Alright. The problem is if we keep her up here, this review will take actually an hour. And I'm trying not to do that to you, YouTube. Now she's getting into other stuff down there. Go on. Oh. Alright. So again, good mix. Good intensity on the nose. Good set of like virgin oak characteristics. But also you have like those typical like rye whiskey, kind of like licorice, dill, pine kind of notes as well. Alright. Here we go. Lot 40. 100% Canadian rye whiskey. Cheers. Just spiciness on the palate. Again, like the cinnamon, nutmeg, Christmas spices. A little bit of oak in there. Some like butterscotch notes. Definitely like you can tell it's rye. There's no question. It's not like, well, is it kind of bourbon-y? No, it's not. Clearly rye whiskey. Very spicy. All the like kind of like Christmas cake kind of spice things going on. A little bit of like that like slight cakey sweetness along with those spices. Kind of feels like a cake, but it doesn't have that same like really strong breadiness that sometimes you get in other grains. Finish is mostly similar. Again, it's got some of that spiciness, a little bit of that barrel on the end. Good intensity of flavor. Nothing wild or crazy interesting going on. It's about kind of like what you'd expect. You want 100% rye whiskey, approachable, spicy, good levels of sweetness, a little bit of oak complement. You get that. That's pretty much, you know. It's not like, I guess the thing you would worry about sometimes with a Canadian rye whiskey, I suppose, if it's like, well, you know, it's a little bit diluted, it's a little bit muted, it's not as, those rye flavors are not as intense as I would like. This does pretty well without having to like up the proof too much. Again, 43% alcohol, it's still doing pretty well. Darmaru is in the house. Cat is creeping over again. What are you doing? You gonna knock that over? That was close. She's chosen anarchy today. She has chosen anarchy, that cat. There's a nice level of sweetness to this. Like you almost want to get like, you almost want to see candy cane, like that dill kind of pine kind of note is not quite mint, but it kind of like gets together with the sweet part, and it kind of feels almost like candy cane, but it's not. But there is like a sweet, green, spicy kind of like aspect to this. There's just a touch of cherry. Sometimes it feels like it trembles into root beer, but it's not quite there. Again, finish is like maybe medium minus. Spicy, woody, sweet. I feel like it's been a while since I had 100% rye whiskey, and this is kind of like really like popping some of those core rye flavors that sometimes I don't get once I've had plenty of ryes. I'm gonna get a bit blind to them, but I've been so much in that single malt, I think, recently that a lot of these really spicy notes are really hitting right now, which is gonna amplify my preference for it, I suppose. All right, so out of 25, let's talk about the aroma. Again, a good mix of like sweetness, kind of notes from the barrel, and like spicy notes from the distillate. Nothing like wild and crazy, just like presenting the core rye whiskey experience in a unquestionable and solid way. I'll give the aroma 17. I think that's fair. It's not quite that interesting, but it's good intensity. It's doing the things that I want it to do. Doesn't disappoint. Sometimes when we go into these, it's kind of like, it's almost like I expect what flavors I'm going to get. It's just whether or not I feel disappointed by their level of intensity or their level of variability. And this is kind of just hitting the benchmarks and providing nothing more. All right, the palate at 25. Again, mostly just spicy, sweet, a little bit woody. It is a little light. Again, probably related to the alcohol percentage. My first couple sips felt pretty full, but now that we're on to like 3 and 4, the flavor is kind of waning a little bit, and it's just the dilution somewhat affecting that, I think. And really, it's just, you know, the intensity. We kind of get everything. It's kind of got the spices and the sweetness and the barrel and the little bit of like woodland notes. But it just suffers a little bit kind of in repeat tastes. Let's give the palate a 14. All right. And the finish at 25. Again, not terribly long. Expected kind of notes and intensity. Start with that, some of those spices, some barrel notes, some sweetness creeps in. You get that like kind of slightly green spicy note, like pine dill area. And you almost want to say root beer, but it's not quite there. Finishes on an oakiness. Texture is a little bit thin, to be honest. Soralia, how's it going? Let's say finish is like 14. That's like fair. So let's talk about the texture. Again, it's a bit on the watery side. Why do you always greet me like that? Baring teeth. Don't worry, I was greeted the same way. Yeah, unfortunately, texture is a little bit on the thin side. Is it 3 or is it 2? I'm gonna say 2. It's pretty damn thin. Gremlin. Alright, so out of 15, my personal subjective experience with this Lot 40 100% Canadian rye whiskey. Not too bad. Again, it's not a terribly expensive offering. It's not an offering that's trying to do anything wild or crazy. It's a how would you say? It's a pedestrian Canadian rye whiskey, and kind of presents that way. It kind of hits pretty much all of the places like you expect a rye whiskey to hit in like a satisfactory way. It's not doing anything that is going to make it insane, but it's solid. You know, you're going to get this and you're not going to think, hey, you know, this is lacking a little bit. It's providing the experience that you expect, I think, when you pick up a bottle like this, and it's not doing anything more. It's solid. It's a solid offer for a solid purpose. But when we judge this against, I suppose, other whiskeys, you know, it falls a little bit short. It's a little bit thin. It's not doing anything wild and interesting. Again, there's like some dimension that you would like a little bit more on the palate intensity, like a little bit more complexity. So like that, it's fine. It's decent. It's a 5 out of 15. Okay. So like that, if we just give her a quick total, we got 17 and 14 and 14 and 2 and 5 is 52. 52 out of 100. It's good. It's barely good. It's good.